Hello everyone, my name is Juan Ochoa and I am the Coordinator of Faculty Initiatives at the Office of Community Engagement. Welcome to week 9 of our 10-part coffee break series. Last week we talked about ways you can be time efficient in your community engagement activities. If you missed that video, I recommend you go back and watch. I would also like to remind everyone that after every video, there will be a very short survey. Complete at least 6 surveys, and OCE will email you a certificate of professional development. Today we'll be talking about Community Engaged Scholarship. We will discuss what Community Engaged Scholarship is, review the 8 characteristics of Community Engaged Scholarship, and share some example goals. The concept of Community Engaged Scholarship has grown in influence over the past decades as a part of a continuing dialogue on the nature of knowledge and the role of academic institutions in society. Community Engaged Scholarship seeks active partnerships between a university and a community as a way to generate, exchange, and apply mutually beneficial and socially useful knowledge and practices. This differs from other types of activities such as outreach to the community. Outreach has traditionally been associated with the dissemination of information to public audiences. This type of dissemination takes numerous forms, but is typically one-way communication rather than an exchange. Community engagement implies a partnership that has a two-way exchange of information, ideas, expertise, as well as a shared decision-making. A key principle that faculty members should always consider when conducting community engaged scholarship is that a faculty member's research, teaching, and service are interdependent and regularly inform one another. And so do these elements in community engaged scholarship. The added criteria for community engaged scholarship is that the faculty member can do this research, teaching, and/or service in partnership with a community organization. Okay, now let's talk about the 8 characteristics of community engaged scholarship. The first characteristic is have clear academic and community change goals. As with any other scholarly project, the objective should be clearly defined from the start of the project. 3 examples of this is clearly stating the basic purpose of the work and its value to the public good, defining goals and objectives that are realistic and achievable, and identifying intellectual and significant questions in the discipline and in the community. The second characteristic is adequate preparation in content area and grounding in the community. Aside from mastering the content area, engaged scholars are also deeply involved in their local community and are always learning from the existing knowledge within their community partners. A couple of goals that you should keep in mind is always invest time and effort in developing these community partnerships. Participate in trainings and professional developments that build skills and competencies for community engaged scholarship, and other models such as service learning, community-based research, or public health, depending if you are in the health fields. Also demonstrate an understanding for the relevant existing scholarship. The third characteristic is always use appropriate methods. Research projects must have credible and rigorous research design, data collection, as well as interpretation and reporting of results. Pedagogy should be rooted in the best practices and be based on valid theoretical frameworks and research-based evidence. 2 goals that you should have for this characteristic is enhancing curriculum by incorporating, updating real-world information from community members, and this is very critical for student learning and course material. Also, deepen and contextualize the learning experience in the course by involving community experts in the design and implementation. Another characteristic of community engaged scholarship is that you should have significant results that impact the field and the community. Projects should aim to work with the community to beneficially impact it. Assessment is critical to the understanding of the nature and the impact of the work, so you should always incorporate assessment in the program design, even from the beginning. A couple goals for this characteristic is to have the community contribute to the research and the learning project, You also want to make sure that you take strides to advance social equity and the public good, and you also want to improve the current processes or outcomes of the community. Another characteristic is effective dissemination to academic and community audiences. Scholars should submit their findings to their peers and should engage in critical conversations with their counterparts in the academy as well as the community. Findings should be shared widely to appropriate audiences to build a body of knowledge that is beneficial to community engagement. So be sure to publish research results or teaching innovations in peer-reviewed journals, practitioner journals, professional journals, publishing in periodicals or newspapers that are read by community members. Disseminate information through other media used by community members, such as radio, newsletters, or maybe podcasts, and utilize video, computer, or distance programs to reach the community. Another characteristic is reflective critique. Learn about the lessons from the scholarship and the community engagement. Community engagement and scholarship is hard work and not always immediately successful. Engaged scholars must be constantly analyzing their results and make important decisions to adapt and course correct as needed. So a couple goals that if you're running through a project that kind of plateaus is to conduct debriefing sessions with community members, seek evaluations from community members, and don't be scared to change project and course design based on feedback and lessons learned. Another characteristic of community engaged scholarship is that it will allow for you to highlight your leadership and your personal contributions. One of the most consistent criteria for promotion or tenure in a university is the evidence of national or international reputations. Community engaged scholars should demonstrate within their discipline or within the arena of their community engaged scholarship, or maybe even both, that their work has earned them a reputation for impact in moving the discipline forward or contributing to change in the community. In addition, community engaged scholars should demonstrate an ability to serve in leadership roles. A couple of things that you can get from community engaged scholarship is receiving awards or letters from appreciation from community-based organization. You may be given the opportunity to mentor students, junior faculty, and community partners, or you may be asked to be a peer observer for a colleague's teaching. Another thing that is a bold characteristic of community engaged scholarship is consistently having high ethical behaviors. Scholars must hold themselves to the highest standards of ethical conduct and rigorous research. Engaged scholars are often leaders in their communities and their academic fields and have the potential to impact a lot of people. Cultivating the conduct of good science, sound research techniques, and appropriate engaged pedagogies that result in meaningful and beneficial contributions to the community is one way to go about it. Another way is to follow all human subject review processes such as CSUSB's Institutional Review Board and engage it with communities in a respectful manner. So another question that comes up with community engaged scholarship is, where can my findings be presented? Our first advice is speak to your community partners. They will know how community members are most likely to reach the information. It might be through a meeting at a local community center. The community partner might also have an email list of local residents, or they might have a large following on social media. Always be sure to be open to sharing your information, whichever way the community partner thinks is best. Our second piece of advice is publish in free open source research repositories. A great example is CSUSB's ScholarWorks website. This type of repository preserves the research, scholarship, and creative work of CSUSB faculty and students. The best part of this is that it is free to access, meaning that community partners will be able to read your research findings. Lastly, a good tool to find the right academic community engaged journal is by using Campus Compact's journal comparison table. This comparison table lists 22 interdisciplinary community engagement journals and compares the type of journal articles accepted for publication in each journal. This table is useful for authors who have a type of article in mind that can be literature review, reflective essays, or poems, but are not sure which journal to publish those type of essays. The journal section comparison table may also be used to prompt potential authors to imagine new writing types of articles based on where those articles could be published. Well, that's it for this coffee break. Thank you for joining us. I've included the list of academic community engaged journal in the description below. If you have any questions about community engaged scholarship, please email me at juan.ochoa@csusb.edu. I would like to remind you to take a quick survey. The link is also listed below. Thank you for joining us for this coffee break. Join us next week as we will discuss community engagement and your RPT. Thank you and see you next week.